What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Enjoying the Review. On today's show, we will be reviewing the premiere episode of The Penguin over on Max. Um, I I still hate that name change from HBO to Max. It's so, I don't know, it's just a garbage name. Um, but it is what it is. So I figure, AJ, oh yeah, by the way, I'm your host, Zach Jones, the incomparable Zach Jones, that is, joined by the one and only, the phenomenal AJ Singh. AJ, how you doing today?
Good, good. Glad to be here.
So I gotta say, AJ, I was looking forward to this Penguin show because I enjoyed the Batman movie. Not my favorite Batman movie. I still like the Nolan, especially Batman Begins and The Dark Knight more. But I did enjoy the Batman, and I've been like wanting to see the next movie in that franchise, which is still going to be a while before that comes out. But I'm glad we get to dive back into that world a little bit with the Penguin. So yeah, let's do kind of as we always do when we review TV episodes. We'll do just kind of a brief, spoiler-free impressions of what we thought of the show, score the episode, and then we'll do a very deep dive discussion on the episode. So yeah, AJ, what are your top level thoughts on this first episode of The Penguin?
I like it. It was pretty good. It's pretty much what I thought it would be. Kind of like a mob family type underground crime boss, trying to gain power type, show and his rise, I guess. And because we had seen Falcone in the movie, and we knew that there was like that power vacuum.
Right.
I think it was, we knew that Penguin was going to be the one who steps in there, and he was the right hand man, so he's going to take over. So, yeah, it was pretty much is what I expected, and I appreciate that. I like it.
Yeah, I actually like this quite a bit, and I got to say, I'm not big on mob movies and stuff. I've never watched The Sopranos. I tend to avoid this stuff, but I don't know. There's something that makes it more palatable to me when you put it in a comic book world. I guess
Yeah,
it would be even more palatable to me if Batman was actually in it. But I'm actually okay that he's not. And I actually did like this first episode a lot, even though it does have a lot of the like I guess tropes you see in mob shows and mob TV. But I still enjoyed it a lot. I think Colin Farrell is very good. I still like it is kind of odd that they chose him and then they just make him unrecognizable with all the makeup and stuff. But I can't complain
yeah,
too much. He does a great job.
it is. Yeah, it's a weird choice though. I don't know. Like even when I'm watching it now, and I know somebody like it's Colin Farrell. Like it's been broken down, it's been talked about. I've seen it. Like it's Colin Farrell, but when you're watching, it's like, how is that Colin Farrell? Like
Yeah,
yeah,
you really can't tell. Like
yeah.
it's one of those things where like if you didn't know it was him, like, do you think you would ever guess it was him? Maybe,
Oh,
but it would take a long time. I don't know. I don't know if I ever would.
I don't see any like. I tried when I look at him, I try to see like what is there that stands out that's Colin Farrell to me, and like I just can't see it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a very good makeup job.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I really did dig this. We'll get into her character more in when we get into spoilers. But Cristin Milioti, I believe her name is, plays the character of Sophia. I thought her character was very intriguing. I'm very intrigued to see like where her character goes. I thought she was kind of the other most interesting character we've been introduced to so far.
Mhm.
Um, um, Also, I thought it was shot really well. It looks uh, very good. I like that it still kind of has like the noirish feeling that the Batman movie had. Especially like the scenes at night when it's like raining really hard and things like that. Yeah, I really dug it. And I'm looking forward to more. So yeah, AJ, where would you rate? How would you rate this first episode? I'm gonna go. You know, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I like this quite a bit.
Yeah, I think I'd give it like a solid 7.5 out of 10. Um, I'm still kind of like like I gotta learn about the DC world. It's kind of weird to me still. Like seeing Gotham, like I still can't like figure out what is Gotham. I know it's like the DC New York, but like what is the vibe? Because like when I watched Blue Beetle, I could tell he lived in like a Miami type city, and like you can
Right.
kind of feel the vibe of it. The vibe of Gotham is like kind of still hard for me to suss out. Like what is the vibe here?
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before. How it's so weird because in DC, like, not only do the fake stand-in cities exist, but then like New York and the real cities exist as well, and it doesn't really make sense because Gotham is meant to be a stand-in for New York. But then again, Metropolis, when it was first conceived, I think it was basically an analog for New York as well. So
Mm.
that doesn't really hold up anymore. Maybe Metropolis would be more like, I don't know, Philadelphia or something. I don't know. But yeah, they have the whole thing because like even with Green Arrow, like Star City is meant to be Seattle, but you'll read comics and stuff in the DC universe where Seattle still exists. It's a real city, so it doesn't like I want to see an actual map of the United States and DC with all these cities and like where they are.
That would be something to see. Yeah, DC needs to release that. Like, yeah, I'm curious about their world building and like what it actually looks like, and yeah. I hope there's like one. I know comics like different writers have like a whole different like story to the world and everything, but I wouldn't mind some continuity. I wish both Marvel and DC had that continuity.
I prefer, especially since like Marvel is so New York City based, and like Marvel, like they feel like they're in like the a fictionalized version, but like still like the basic
Yeah,
United States with the cities we have. I would prefer that DC just like stop mentioning real cities. Like New York is Gotham. Stars. Seattle is Star City. And then I think even like is it Central City and like Opal City or like is it like the Twin Cities in Minnesota, something like that. There's some Midwest cities, I don't remember what they're supposed to be stand-ins for exactly, but yeah, I think it would be cooler if they were just like, no, New York doesn't exist in this universe, it's Gotham, you know what I mean? um,
and it's the Arrow that lives in Star City, right?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
you wouldn't think
yeah.
of Seattle as like a place that needs the Arrow.
Does any place really need a guy with a bow and arrow?
Really, the
Like,
guy. I don't know. Kate Bishop saw him and was like, "That's me. That's my dream to be Hawkeye."
maybe she was already in archery class and she was like, this seems attainable.
It's a lateral move, right? Might as well.
Yeah.
Adult wearing a costume and shooting bow.
But yeah, I thought this was a very strong introduction, and I'm looking forward to the next episodes. So, with that out of the way, AJ, should we get into spoilers?
Let's do it.
All right. So, episode 1 is called After Hours. So, I think it starts off smartly by giving kind of a succinct recap of what happened at the end of The Batman, where the seawalls were exploded by the Riddler, the city is flooded, and so now there's basically a lot of chaos, lots of crime, um, gang gang wars basically starting to sprout up over like drugs, and what I kind of like about this is
Cruiser bead.
there's a great Batman comic that I would recommend anybody read, and it's called No Man's Land, and it actually took place over a couple years in Batman continuity, so it's a very long story. But basically, the premise is a big earthquake hits Gotham, and basically all the villains carve out a territory of the city for themselves, and then it is almost like a gang war type
Mm.
thing. And all the Batman family ends up, going to these different territories and fighting. But it's a very good era of Batman comics, and it's really good. But this kind of reminds me of that just because the flood like wrecked these a large portion of Gotham, so now you got gang. gangs, fighting over territory and stuff. Um, they mentioned that one of the poorest neighborhoods is called Crown Point,
Yeah.
which I don't know if I've ever heard of that. Like Batman Begins, the bad part of town was called the Narrows, and I've definitely read that in the comics as well. I don't know if Crown Point is original to this show or if it's maybe been mentioned in comics before as well.
Yeah, that's weird. I feel like maybe it's just like I've heard Crown and other things like Crown Plaza, Crown this, but it
Right.
sounded like it might be a familiar name, but yeah, maybe not.
But this is all told through a news story, and the news story now mentions that there is a power vacuum in the city, and of course, Penguin's looking to fill that. They mentioned that with Carmine Falcone dead, he died at the end of the Batman. It's rumored that his son Alberto Falcone will take his place. This is something I found kind of interesting because, like, the fact that the news is openly acknowledging that, like, yeah, the mafia exists, and like we know the next guy who's in charge. It seems kind of weird.
Yeah, that is weird. Like there's like a coronation of a mob boss that everybody's like legally, yeah, that's just public knowledge. It's weird.
Yeah, the fact that that's just a news story that, like, yep, this guy's the up and coming new mob boss.
Yeah, just publicly acknowledged. That's weird. Yeah.
So now,
Movies do that. Movies do that. Like the news in movies covers like the weirdest like plot like driven type thing. Otherwise, like the character always like turns on the news and it's like the thing they're talking about, the event that they're taking part in. It's so convenient. That's a trope.
it does, yeah, it does work good as like an exposition machine to tell us a lot of information succinctly. But I
Yeah.
do kind of feel that, like, they're they're probably like, well, if someone happens to watch this that did not watch the Batman, we have to
Hmm.
kind of give them a clue as to what's going on. So
Yeah.
I was okay with it.
Mhm.
So we're introduced to Oswald. He has a sledgehammer, and I noticed in this show, like, he's really like he has a severe limp, which
Mhm.
makes him waddle like a penguin.
Yeah.
And I assume he did that maybe somewhat in the Batman movie, but I don't remember him limping quite like that in the Batman movie. Maybe it's just something that happened I don't remember. But
I
I
couldn't
feel
tell
like in
you.
that movie, like, we didn't see him move as much.
Like, are you
Um,
talking about the old ones with Danny DeVito?
no, I mean the Robert
Oh, like the
Pattinson.
actual, oh, the Batman.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't pick up on his movement too. I don't recall how he moved in that movie.
maybe they just had him more stationary in that movie, so we
Maybe
didn't
they
notice.
didn't show like the camera angle of like him like zoomed out, actually like walking around like that. I'm not sure.
But he breaks into the Iceberg Lounge and he hammers open this hidden panel there, and he basically finds all this blackmail material that I think presumably
Falcone
was
has.
Carmine Falcone's treasure trove of blackmail material. And
Yeah.
so he sees various, like, incriminating documents and pictures. One of them he will use later, which is like a picture of a councilman with, like, a sex worker, or like presumably someone he's like cheating on his wife with.
Yeah.
Um, he also finds some valuable jewels, but as soon as he finds those, he's confronted by Alberto Falcone, who puts a gun on him and threatens him. So to get out of this situation, Oswald gives him the jewels. He says that these are yours now, and he basically kind of you know lies to him to get him on his side, like props him up as like, yeah, you're the next guy in line, and like you'll do a good job and all this kind of stuff. So they sit down and get to talking. Now, this Falcone guy, he's got a drug problem. He's on the drops, big old drop head, and he's also like an alcoholic.
Bunch of
Which
clear eyes. He
I
just
also
can't
thought
let
it was
it go.
funny that the news thing like mentioned that he's an alcoholic.
Yeah. The exposition on the news is unmatched.
Um, so Oswald gets him drunk and high and tries to figure out what his plan is. He mentions that his plan is to release some sort of new drug that he says will like revitalize the drug trade in Gotham.
Yeah.
Um, he gives Oswald a valuable necklace. He's like, give this to your best woman or something like that. But he does tell Oswald, he's like, I know you were skimming money from my dad, and my dad knew that too. But like, you got the results he wanted, so like, he never said anything. Something along those lines.
Yeah, essentially.
Um, so Alberto wears his dad's ring, which his dad got. So his dad was a rat to the police or whatever, and he got Sal Maroni arrested, and he took Sal Maroni's ring and basically flaunts it around on his fingers, basically saying that I own Maroni or whatever, or I did that to him.
And Maroni was in the Batman movie, right? I think I remember him. Or was he?
Actually, no. They just mentioned that Falcone put him away. So
Oh,
Falcone was in Falcone, senior. He was in the Batman, but I don't think we ever saw Clancy Brown as Sal Maroni in the Batman. I think he was just in this
I
show.
think I just remember him like reference, like the name.
He
Yeah.
was referenced, yeah, for sure. Um, so yeah, now Alberto wears that ring. Um, Alberto asks Oswald if he can be as good as his father was. And so this leads Oswald to telling this story that when he was a kid, there used to be this gangster who like everybody revered. And then when he was like 14 years old, this gangster died of a heart attack. And like the neighborhood loved him so much that they threw him a parade in his honor. And he kind of like is saying he
He,
likes that he had that
he
much
was
respect.
a gangster with like a heart of gold who like took care of the neighborhood. He's like one of those mobsters who like
Yeah, he's a guy that would front you rent money if you needed
yeah
it, always made sure you were okay, that kind of thing.
yeah
So Alberto then mocks Oswald, telling him, he's like, I'm living your dream. And he's like, people would never make a float out of your ugly face. And then he calls him, names, humiliates him. And basically, this like angers Oswald. He pulls out his gun, boom, shoots him dead. Um, so I kind of liked that. It was a kind of subversive because I'm like I was thinking like I knew this story was going to be Oswald's rise to power, but my thought would be like the whole season would be him, trying to overtake this Falcone kid that he hates. But
yeah.
nope, he just up and shoots him. So I kind of like that. It felt like it subverted expectations a little bit.
I like the shooting. One thing that I thought was kind of unnatural though was how this Falcone kid was acting. Like I get that he's like erratic and on drugs, and that explains part of it, but it just seems so unnatural for him to like go from one like setting to like one mood, like where he seems like he's engaged in a conversation to where he just like complete. I mean, yeah, you can blame it on drugs. I guess that's the easy explanation, but it just seemed like such a tangent. He just completely changed course in that conversation.
It also always seems like a trope in mob stuff where like, the Godfather is like very kind of calm, collective, smart, and he always the son that's about to take over, he's always erratic,
Brash.
angry, brash, makes rash decisions, off the
Even
handle,
Thor Ragnarok
crazy.
did that. Like it's just whoever is in a position of power, they've like handed off, and they have like this unworthy child who has to become
Right.
worthy.
It's almost always like that in these
Yeah.
type of things. Um, So Oswald puts his body in a body bag, and I like this. He was like packing him down a set of stairs, and then he's basically just like, "Oh, what am I doing?" and like throws his body
Yeah.
down off the side. Um, so he goes outside and he catches some hoodlums trying to take the rims off of his plum colored car,
Yeah.
and he shoots at him, and he gets one bullet in like the back of his car.
I
Most of
did
them. Oh, go ahead.
I did think that was a strange, like, Penguin's supposed to be this clever, like, feign weakness, hide your strength kind of guy. But he's got this like flashy purple, like fancy car. It just seems like I would imagine him having like a more like humble vehicle to like kind of go under the radar with, to like fit into that image of somebody who's like pretending to be something, like weaker, something less than what he really is.
I could see that, but then on the other hand, he does kind of revere like these higher ups that are living big, and so maybe that's his like small way of living big is like, oh, I can't have everything, but I'll have a flashy looking car. That's
Yeah,
something
I
I
can
can
see it.
control. Maybe something like that.
Yeah, that's what keeps him satiated. Like, okay, I've got this at least.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Um, but all these kids get away except one. He catches one of them, um, and he forces this kid to help him move the body. This kid's name is Victor, and he has like a stutter. You know, he's very nervous around the penguin because he thinks he's going to kill him. Um, but they put the body in the back of his car, and Oswald tells this kid, he's like, "I own you now. Like we're in this together. You know too much. Like you're in this."
Yeah.
What did you
Um,
think about this kid and his character?
I couldn't tell like if he was supposed to be bigger or like a Easter egg to something more. Like, is he a future version of Cyborg or something? This kid, I don't know. But at the same time, like I liked his inclusion. I liked the dynamic between him and Penguin. It definitely kept things on edge.
Yeah,
Um, there I didn't have that sense of like he's safe. Naturally you would think the narrative, you would think this kid, there's more to the story, you're gonna find out more, but they did establish that Falcon or that the Penguin, like he'll kill anybody if he reacts in a way, like impulsively. So he's already upset with this kid. He's already distraught over killing Falcone. Who knows what he might do? He's kind of like in a desperate situation. So there is that feeling of what's going to happen to this kid. He's nervous. He's scared. You can feel it the way he's talking, stuttering, all this stuff. So I think that added like a lot of weight to everything. It added like some edgy vibes to it.
oh yeah, I don't think this kid is safe at all. I kind of predict that by the end of the show, he'll either be dead or locked up in jail.
Something, yeah,
Like
yeah.
I don't think I think something bad is going to happen to him. Um, so before Oswald put Alberto in the body bag, he took Alberto's phone and scanned his face to unlock his phone. And so he's looking through Alberto's phone, and he notices he has information to where that new drug shipment is coming in. So he takes a picture of that information with his phone so that he can then destroy Alberto's phone so nobody can track that phone. Um, so they then go to a tenement building in the red light district, and he takes the kid, and they're walking up in this apartment building, and we get a glimpse that Oswald walks with some sort of metal like brace on his leg. He meets with a prostitute named Eve, and he pays her a little bit of money and gets her to give him an alibi for the night because he knows he's going to need that. They go out to this place on the outskirts of the city, and they burn some evidence, which I think is mostly bags of like what Oswald was wearing when he was like moving the body and stuff like that, and just any sort of incriminating evidence they may have. And while they're doing that, they're like eating sandwiches. I think I don't know if it's here, but at some point they have this conversation about like how they both grew up in like a poor part of town, and like there was this store they both knew of, and he talked about how he would get slushies and like
Buddies.
mix the flavors, that sort of thing. Um, so they take the body to a junkyard, and they put it in a trunk of a car, and then Oswald, before he shuts the trunk, he takes that Sal Moroni's ring off of his finger. So then Oswald like tells Victor, turn around, watch the sunset. So like he's gonna kill him.
Mhm.
And so basically Victor pleads with him. He says he just needs a chance. He's like, I'm full of ambition, like, and so I think Oswald in that moment kind of sees in him like him as a young kid, and he's like, oh, this kid, maybe he does have something like, and like, maybe he can help me. So Oswald does decide to spare his life there. Um, so Oswald takes the kid back to his apartment, and this I thought was like they did a good job with this like makeup effect. So he takes off his shoes, and we see that the reason he limps is because his foot is like all deformed. Like his toes look all broken. They're all like going in the wrong directions and stuff. I don't know if this was like a birth defect or something terrible happened to his leg and foot. But I thought this was a very like gross and good effect. What do you think of it?
Yeah, it's almost like he's been playing like in the NBA his whole life. Like he's got some jacked up feet, like a basketball player.
Oh, I didn't know
Um,
that. Do NBA players get jacked up feet?
oh yeah. LeBron James, all of them, they got some jacked up ass feet, dude. Um, but yeah, that's what he had, a club foot or whatever.
Right, right.
um, yeah, I don't know. I think it's fine. Like, I don't think you have to make him deformed. He could just have like a disability or something. You don't. He doesn't have to be especially different. There's not to be something uniquely different like that genetically or whatever.
They
But
just want to make him extra gross.
yeah, basically, yeah. I don't know. It's fine. I don't care either way. I guess.
So now they get in the car, they drive over a bridge, and like Oswald kind of comments about the Riddler, what the Riddler did to the city, and like, look at what that madman did to our city.
Mm.
Um, so they go to a drug plant that produces those drop drugs, and so Oswald takes that incriminating picture of the councilman, and he puts it in the envelope, and he writes on the envelope, let's be pals, and he like has one of his guys that works for him, he's like, bring this to the councilman, because apparently that councilman like is a big fan of the mayor who was introduced in the Batman. I think her name is like Rial or something, Mayor Rial.
Yeah.
um so um so they're setting that up, some political corruption. um so he has a conversation with one of the workers at the plant, and like apparently like they, when the place was flooded, they lost a bunch of the drops, but the guy says like they were able to like fish a bunch of them out of the sewer, and he's
70%,
basically like, well, that's not going to
70% of
stop
drop.
druggies from using them.
That's insane, dude. How do you get 70% of your drug inventory out of a flood? Like, that's exceptional. I don't know.
That is true. Like, I guess it depends on how much damage the flood did. I don't know, but yeah,
I
he
mean,
does
it's
mention
hard to
later on.
find people in a flood. You're telling me they found drugs in a flood? Like, all right. Yeah, all right, we'll go with it.
But I was thinking, people take this drug by actually putting the drops in their eyes. I'm like, everybody's gonna get pink eye now. Like that's gonna be the
True.
telltale sign of a drop user. They got pink eye because they're using sewer drops.
Yeah, fair. Or you have pink eye. Are you a drug addict? Are you been doing those drops lately?
Right.
No, I just got shit in my eyes.
So a gang member is brought in that was like all beat up by a rival gang, and Oswald basically mentions that like now all the gangs are testing boundaries that they wouldn't before because of the way the flood has changed things. So Oswald is called in by some higher ups in the mob, and he goes out to this mansion. And the higher ups tell them that they're going to shut down his drug plant and move it to a place called Robbinsville. And Oswald is very against this because he's like, yeah, it might be safer to move it out there, but there's like less business. Like you're going to be losing a lot of money if you move it out there.
Yeah.
And this leader guy Johnny, he's just like, tells them, look, this isn't a, you don't have a choice in the matter. Like, I'm your boss. This is the way it is, you know. But Oswald tells him that thinks he has a way to fix this whole thing, because he has information about this shipment that's coming in that's going to revitalize the drug market.
Yeah.
And in the background, Sophia shows up and hears him say this. So he's, echoing the words of what Alberto said like the night before or whatever. So yeah, Sophia comes in. We find out that she used to be an inmate at Arkham, which is interesting. She says she's been rehabilitated. And she asked Oswald if he's heard from Alberto. And he kind of is wishy-washy, doesn't really answer her question in that moment. But Johnny tells him that he has 48 hours to shut down the plant. So he starts to leave, but as he's going out the door, Sophia confronts him and asks him she's like, "You didn't answer me. Where is Alberto?" So he says he's sure he's fine. Like he's like, he's the new guy in charge. He's probably just, really busy,
Yeah, like I get that it's all written ahead of time, but I do think that they were pretty good when it came to this writing where he has to like think quick on his feet, and like you're like, oh, is he cornered now? How's he gonna get out of this one? I felt like there was some of that. It was pretty well done.
Yeah, that's definitely part of his character. He's like smart on his feet, and there's a couple instances of him like that in this episode. But I will say, like, Sophia does a good job of like seeing through him too. She's like the one person that kind of doesn't really fall for it.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like a little cat and mouse situation. Like, yeah, she's on to him, but he keeps trying to squirm his way out of it and like trying to, trick her, make her believe something else. Yeah.
Yeah, so he gives her this line. She doesn't seem to believe him. She does notice at this point that she notices the bullet hole in his car, and he tells her the story of like, yeah, these kids were, trying to steal my rims. I shot at him. And I think she notes here that like, oh, you got a nice flashy purple car or whatever. And he's like, it's plum. So that, that's where that comes in. Anyway, she makes him go to a restaurant with her. And as she's eating, and they make it a point to where she's like kind of eating like a maniac. Like,
yeah, she's really hungry, it looks like.
Yeah. As she's eating, they both notice that there's a couple like staring at her. Which they might just be staring because of the crazy way she's eating. But
yeah.
she's like, I don't blame them for staring. I mean, after all, I am a psycho killer walking around free. And she's like, what did the Gazette call me? The Hangman? So, okay, I thought this was interesting because, I mean, presumably she used to be, some sort of like serial killer. And like, I guess Gotham is corrupt enough that, she's back out. And like they said, oh yeah, she's insane. She went to Arkham, she got better and now she's out. I don't know. It's very interesting. Now, I think this is somewhat based on the comics. There's a famous comic called The Long Halloween, which features Alberto Falcone, but very differently than how he's featured here. And then there's a sequel to The Long Halloween called Dark Victory. And in that book, there's a character related, and I don't know if it's Sophia, it could be, but she is like the Hangman, and we find out like she was like putting ropes around guys and like literally hanging them. And so I'm just interested in her backstory. Like, is that what she was doing? Was she literally like a serial killer that was hanging people, and like they let her back on the streets? I just want to know, like, her backstory.
Because she seems like she feels like a freak. Like, she feels judged, and like she's got this like cloud over her head that she can't like get rid of. That's the way she comes off as. So yeah,
I'm really curious where they're going with their relationship, because in this episode, like, they're very contentious and they seem like they're going to, kind of be rivals throughout this series. But then there's the whole thing where they're both kind of in their own way freakish. So like I'm like, are they going to set up a romance between these two before the show's over? I don't know. I still think she's way out of his league, but
oh for sure, yeah. No, if I saw them hook up, I'd feel bad. I'd be like, oh, this is not right.
um, so Sophia tells him that she knows Alberto went to the Iceberg Lounge alone last night, and that she's heard him talking about revolutionizing the drug business. She suspects him because like he talked the same as Alberto. She wants to know why he knows about his plan and why he's pitching it as his own plan. So again, Oswald, like, quick on his feet. He's basically like, um, you know, says Alberto, is on a drug bender somewhere, and he basically says he must have been keeping us both in the dark. Like, he didn't tell me that you knew the plan, and he must not have told you that I know the plan. So he comes up with this, thing, um, to try to make her believe that her brother's still alive, and he even tells her that he was with his lady Eve like all night the night before if she wants to check up on him. So that's where that comes into play. He also offers to take her to the Iceberg Lounge so they can search together. But she says no. She's like, I'm sure I'm just being crazy. So as they say goodbye, she whispers to him. She's like, I know people always underestimate you, but I've always known that you're capable of more. So it really kind of hammers home that like she's not really buying what he's saying.
Yeah.
So Oswald meets up with Victor again, and he kind of gives him this like big rah-rah speech about how they both grew up in poor parts of town, but he can see he has ambition, and he's like, I need to know, like, are you in this, that type of thing. And he basically gets Victor to say that, yeah, I'm ready, I can do this, that sort of thing. So Oswald and Victor get on a subway. I found this interesting. A stranger comes up and he has like these QR codes with him, and he says to scan them to see Gotham's true face. I'm not sure if that's going to be referenced again, or if it's just, or I don't know. Maybe it's like one of the Riddler's followers who still like um, uh, fanatical about the Riddler. I wasn't sure what that was. Do you have any ideas?
Honestly, like unlike Marvel, I don't know enough to like put these pieces together yet. Uh, yeah, I don't know. Like I think I'm kind of blind when it comes to like all this stuff.
Yeah, I found it interesting, but then I'm like, I don't know if this is something they're gonna
Yeah.
call back or anything. So now they get in a car that Oswald had stashed away, which is like a station wagon, so a more modest car. And they drive out to Oswald's mom's house. He gives her the expensive necklace that Alberto gave him. Oswald gets a bag of money that he had stashed at her house, and we find out that his mom probably has some sort of dementia, because he like goes in the bathroom and he's like, Mom, your pills are like in the bathtub, like they're like no good or whatever. And he's like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, the boys were taking a bath or something. And he's kind of like looking at her funny. So I think we're gonna find it, because we see like there's pictures on the wall of like, I think, him and his siblings when they were kids. So I think we're gonna find out that somehow, some way, his siblings died, but now she has dementia. So like she maybe at times thinks they're still alive. Is that what you got out of it?
Yeah, like I think she just like relives the past.
But it's
'Cause-
weird because she had that one moment, but other than that, she kind of seems very sharpened with it.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, maybe she's just starting to lose it. Like it's getting worse and worse sort of situation. Like like he'll get to the point where he has to do something about her situation getting worse.
But Oswald tells her that he's gonna take her somewhere, and like she can tell something's up, but so she's like, she can tell that he's lying to her, and she's like, "What's really going on?" So she gets him to confess that he did shoot Falcone. He tells her that she's not safe, and he's like, "Sophia knows what he did, or if she doesn't, she soon will." I like that line because it shows that like I think he has a respect for Sophia. Like he knows like she's smart, and he's
Yeah,
like, you know, he he's smart enough to know that she wasn't buying like the line he was feeding her.
yeah. And I like that. He's not just this like all powerful, all wise villain. Like he was like panicking and didn't know what to do. Like he was doing the fight or flight thing where like he was just trying to run,
Right.
but then somebody set him straight and said like, here, why don't you think this through? And
Yeah.
so that's what kind of changed it.
Um, she asked him why he killed him, and he says because he laughed at me. And she basically is like, "You sound like a sissy boy." And she tells him that what he did was not impulsive; it was instinctual. She tells him he shouldn't run because he's close to getting everything he deserves. Um, so like she kind of builds him up as like like um, you're about to get everything like you've been working for, and also she's like the standard like mob mother that's like in on it. She's like all about it. Like she doesn't care. She just wants him to be like the
Yeah,
kingpin.
that's such a weird character too. Like the woman who's like even more like into the mob life than the guy. Like she's like guiding him.
Right.
Mm.
So Oswald visits Sal Maroney in prison. Sal is played by Clancy Brown, who's been in like a million things.
If there's like a organization, Clancy Brown needs to be a part of it. Yeah,
Yeah, he's even. I just like a couple weeks ago, I rewatched John Wick 4, and
yeah.
like he's that guy in their organization. Um, so Oswald tells Sal that he's done with the Falcones and wants to offer his services to the Maroney family. He tells him about how the higher ups are going to shut down the drug plant and move it, and he tells them that he can set it up so that Sal's crew can move in and take over the whole plant. He says he'll play the victim, and then they can split the payday. He asks Sal if he misses the respect uh, that Carmine Falcone took from him, and he said that Carmine was a rat and played them both for fools. Um, Sal doesn't really buy this, and he tells him that he doesn't work for people whose loyalty is for sale, which is a line I liked. Um, Oswald tells him to reconsider and says that he'll be back in a couple of days. And then before he leaves, he gives Sal his ring back that Falcone took. And so like Sal was like basically telling him to F off. But then I think when he showed him that ring, it did make he's like, "How did you get this?" And it did kind of make him start to maybe rethink things. The only thing is here, like any well-run prison, like is not gonna let him like take a ring like that. I don't think they're gonna be like they're gonna not let a visitor like blatantly like hand something over to a prisoner. I wouldn't think, right?
actually, this is the most believable part of this, really, because, uh, like these crime families, they have connections. They can scare these prison guards by threatening their families. Like they get away with a lot in prison, to be honest. There are prisons where the inmates are running it.
I mean, I guess that's kind of true, and you can also say that, like, Gotham is especially a corrupt town. So, like,
Yeah.
if you can get away with something like that anywhere, it would be Gotham. So, I guess I could buy that. Now I was a little confused here. So Penguin gets in his car, and I'm guessing he's just driving back to where he lives. Oh, there was a quick Easter egg here. So he noticed that Sophia and her crew are like on the street. There is a Burgess jewelry store, which I assume is a reference to Burgess Meredith, who played the Penguin
Mm,
way back in the Batman '66, Adam West TV show.
okay.
But do you know, is that where they were? Was just that like Penguin's apartment?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Like, I don't know what Penguin's whole story is. Like, I don't know where he like what his nest is and like what this place is to him. Like, I feel like he's got a lot going on. So yeah, I don't know.
Or I
Maybe
guess,
like a backup stash house or something, like a hideout. I don't know.
yeah, I wasn't sure if this was his place or maybe he went back to where that Eve woman was, and I don't know. But because he's driving that plum car, Sophia is able to spot him, and she sics
Yeah.
her men on him. Um, so they end up catching Oswald. Like, he has to stop because, like, conveniently there's like this bus blocking the road, and then there's a bunch of people with umbrellas. Um, so yeah, they end up catching Oswald, and they strip him naked, tie him to a chair, and beat him. Um, Sophia found one of the kids that Oswald shot at trying to steal his car rims. So she knows that he was by the Iceberg Lounge the day Alberto was killed, or not killed, but went missing, because she doesn't know yet. Oswald tells Sophia that the kid is lying, so she shoots and kills him. And the thing is here, like, she knows that the kid's not lying, but like
Hmm.
she wants Oswald to be, she's basically telling him, "You just killed this kid," you know. Um, I think she actually has a line where, like, you're okay with other people getting punished for your mistakes or something like that.
Yeah.
So Sophia starts torturing Oswald by having her man, like, basically like take a wire and like wrap it around like his like arm, like his armpit, and like start like cutting into his arm with it.
Mhm. Yeah, that was weird. It's a nice little torture method right there.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird like thing, but I'm like, well, it looks painful. I wouldn't want it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then all of a sudden they hear a car crash outside and the horn blaring. So they get distracted and go outside, and it's the car from the junkyard. Um, and she looks in the trunk, and she finds Alberto's dead body. And on the top of like the trunk, it says payback. So Sophia screams, and when Oswald hears her scream, he laughs. But apparently, what they did is they made it look like the Maronis did this. So he's setting up, um, you know, the Maronis are the Falcones to clash with the Maronis, it looks like. Um,
Are we supposed to
now,
get the impression here that the kid has had a complete like change of heart, and like now he's just like in it because he wants to like rise up the ladder, or he's like into this lifestyle or something?
well, it's weird because they did briefly tease that maybe the kid got cold feet, because there was times when Oswald called him and it went directly to his message, and Oswald was like, "Ugh," and it seemed like maybe the kid like dropped out, but now the
Mhm.
kid, came through for him.
Yeah.
And actually, we find out that they had planned this whole thing together.
But
Um,
like survival instinct wise, like it doesn't make sense to help Oswald in the situation, right? Like it just makes sense for him to die and you to be free of that whole scenario. But like for this kid to save the guy who has his life in his hands, like it seems weird, you know?
that is kind of true because, like, I think if he was smart, yeah, he would just let Oswald die.
Yeah.
But maybe that rah-rah speech that Oswald gave him, like maybe he's like, oh, maybe I can actually get, get up the ladder. Like maybe he does see something in Oswald, like, oh, this guy maybe could potentially become the new guy, and then I would be the right hand kid of the guy, or whatever.
Yeah.
The only thing, and they basically transition right from that scene to the end scene where Oswald and Victor are talking to each other. But I'm like, okay, so that means that Sophia was just like, yep, this is definitely the Maronis. I'm letting Penguin go. No questions asked. And I'm like, no matter what, she knows he was at the Iceberg Lounge. She
Yeah.
knows he was involved in some way. I just don't.
Exactly.
So to me, I would have liked to see the scene where, like, maybe while she was distracted, Victor actually came in and untied Penguin, helped him get out. Because I don't see Sophia just being like, yep, I'm letting you go. This could not be you at all,
Honestly, like it could have just confirmed her suspicions about the Penguin because like it all happened so coincidentally right when she was about to kill him.
Yeah,
Like
that's another thing. It happened so conveniently.
yeah, I would have thought for sure like this is intervention on your behalf. Like yeah, I don't know.
At the very least, I would have liked to see a scene where, like, Sophia comes back to him, and then he uses like some sort of silver tongue trick to
Mm-hmm.
convince her that it was Sal Maroni, and, like, you know, let me
How
go,
he's
or
gonna help her?
yeah, I can help you.
Yeah,
I to get even with the Maronis,
yeah,
something.
that can be
Um,
useful. Yeah,
or maybe he could come up with a lie to where, like, yeah, I'm sorry, I knew that the Maronis got to Alberto, and I was going to try to steal his drug plan. It was like, I shouldn't have done that, but at the same time, I didn't kill him. Something like that. And then maybe he could be like, if you let me live, I'll help you get revenge with the Maronis. Something like that.
yeah, but at the same time, like what's stopping messengers from going in between and being like, Maroney says he didn't kill, your brother, and she's like, oh, he didn't kill him. Okay, well, shit, then who did? Like, I don't know,
Yeah,
because Maroney, yeah,
no, you're right. You're right. But I don't know. I just feel like there was something missing to where, like, she, she wouldn't have just let him go without something happening in between.
oh, for sure, yeah, I agree.
So I don't know. Um, and then so we end with Oswald and Victor. They're drinking some of those slush puppies with the mixed flavors,
Mm-hmm.
and Oswald tells Victor that he's going to run the city, and he wants Victor to be in on it because Victor earned it. And then we kick into 9 to 5 by Dolly Parton. How can you not like that? And yeah, we go out on that note. Um, I liked it.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, it's interesting. It's like a for me, it's like a brand new world building experience, like with a storyline because I'm just getting into DC, so and Penguin's not somebody I've had a lot of exposure to, so this is all kind of new to me. So I have no like reference to like compare this to. So everything looks good to me. Yeah.
Yeah, really liked this episode. Excited to see where it goes. Um, like I said, I think I am most interested to see how that, like, Sophia character develops, and I do hope we get like some of her backstory because that sounds interesting as well. Um, do you think by the end of the season, Penguin will, like, be on top, or do you think he'll end up in prison or something? How do you think things are going to end for him?
Uh, I mean, you know how seasons always end. Like, there's always some sort of cliffhanger. So I couldn't say what the cliffhanger is going to be. Maybe some new, at the very end, like bad guy pops up, and we're like left with like, oh, how's he going to deal with this guy next season or something? Who knows, right? But I think I'm curious to see how many seasons there are going to be of Penguin.
Same. I honestly, I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if this is a one and done, just because, like, I saw a time lapse video on, like, Twitter of, like, Colin Farrell getting in the makeup, and it's like a 4 hour process or something. And
Yeah,
so I know he can't enjoy doing that. And
Yeah.
so I wouldn't be surprised if he's like, no, one's enough.
Yeah. Um, I mean, with Marvel shows, we've seen this, but Marvel also pays an arm and a leg. I don't know how DC works right now, but I think keeping a guy like that in a TV show for multiple seasons probably isn't cheap. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know what the budget of this thing was, but yeah, you're probably right. It's probably not cheap, but yeah, I thought it was like good um, you know, television, and it's I think the good thing about it is it renews interest in the Robert Pattinson Batman franchise,
yeah.
so we don't totally forget that it's a thing. Um, but yeah, all I gotta say is I really enjoyed this episode. Looking forward to more. AJ, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Well, just what you just said, like, I do hope that's very easy to have delineation as to what's what part of the DC universe is. Like, it sounds like they've kind of built out this little, stem, this little branch where it's like Robert Pattinson, his Penguin, and that little world right there. But then there's gonna be a whole different DC universe where it's like the actual Superman and the actual like Justice League or whatever's gonna be presented to us in the future. So I mean, it sounds like there's already like two different versions that we can think of so far there, right?
Yeah, I think the plan is definitely to have like this is just a like the Robert Pattinson Batman universe is its own thing.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, that's good, but also bad. Like, I get that it's weird. It would be weird to see the Robert Pattinson Batman in a Justice League movie. That would be weird because this Batman's not that kind of Batman. But I do want to see like I do hope that all that other stuff, Justice League and like the more cosmic battles with Darkseid and all that stuff are gonna come. Like yeah, I just hope the full DC universe is on display, like all the biggest, the baddies, all that stuff. Get to try again eventually or whatever. Cool stuff.
I think that's definitely Gunn's plan. Whether that comes to fruition or not is who knows. Hopefully, but yeah, I think James Gunn has a lot of affinity for those deep cut characters of the DC universe and wants to get to them. Um,
Uh, we did like last session or last podcast. We didn't talk about how Marvel or Sony is bringing in Null, and we talked about this before, like just offline, like how I was always like nervous about Sony reaching into that bucket and pulling Null's name out and using him as a villain in these movies. And they got desperate and they were like, "Well, there's one big gun left," and they just. I mean, I guess they think they're going out with a big bang with these Venom, movies. It's their trilogy, and this is like the I guess the big send off. But boy, Null is this villain who like he killed nowhere the Celestials. He controls Celestials even. He created a symbiote. He's supposed to be like the being in the darkness, one with it, molds it. And like in this movie, he looks like a goddamn street level villain. Like he's gonna have like a fisticuffs fight with villain. With it's like what the fuck?
yeah, I mean these Sony movies. I mean we've talked about it a lot. How we just want them to fold and sell the movie rights to Marvel because like none of these have been. Well, to be fair, I haven't watched the Venom movies. I had no interest in them.
Yeah.
They looked bad. They weren't particularly well reviewed, especially the second one.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but I think I told you this off air. Like sometimes it takes them screwing up a character before somebody can do it right. So that's what this is going to be. Yeah, because I know you're a big fan of that like King in Black storyline from the comics, and that's where Noel, that character, is from or whatever. But yeah, I have no faith that this Venom movie's going to be any good. But it comes out soon-ish, doesn't it? Like in a month or two.
Oh, I'm surprised. Yeah. Okay. Well. Jeez. I mean, that's fast. Like the fact that I didn't even know Noel was going to be in one of these movies, and now it's already coming out in like a couple months. Like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I can't tell. It
Hey,
does seem like it just came out of nowhere.
but AJ, the good news is no matter how bad Venom 3 is, you'll always have Kraven the Hunter to
That's
look
true.
forward
Yeah,
to. So,
that'll, that'll wash out the bad things.
it's not a total loss. You always have something.
Yeah,
Um,
made me feel better. Yeah.
but I'm glad we're watching The Penguin rather than those terrible movies.
Hey,
So yeah, I think that'll do it for today's show. I want to thank everybody for following along. Please subscribe to our channel, thumbs up, comments, all that good stuff. If you like, you can follow me over on Twitter/X at Zach Jones Live. That's ZachJonesLive. And until next time, we hope you're enjoying the review. Bye, guys.
take care.